Hello and welcome to our roundup of the European Parliament's latest plenary session here in Strasbourg. The week saw midterm elections for the Parliament's leadership, as well as some tough issues, including the financial crisis and the environment. We begin with a change of command. The leadership switch saw the EPP group's Jerzy Buzek of Poland wrapping up his 2.5-year term as Parliament President. The EPP group now relinquishes the presidency in a regular rotation between the Parliament's leading political groups. But as the largest political force in the Parliament, it took 7 of the 14 elected vice presidential posts. They include Roberta Angelilli of Italy, an incumbent vice president who's been active in defending women's rights around the world. Vidal-Quadras of Austria also leads the Kangaroo Group, an EU political forum promoting Europe's single market. Georgios Papastamkos of Greece is a former cabinet minister for the Foreign Office and Economy Ministry, as well as a longtime former member of his national parliament. Jacek Protasiewicz of Poland chairs the delegation for relations with Belarus. Laszlo Suryan of Hungary is a doctor who served as welfare minister in the 1990s before entering the European Parliament. Vidal-Quadras of Spain is an incumbent vice president. He taught physics and conducted nuclear research before entering politics in Catalonia, then the European Parliament in 1999. Rainer Wieland of Germany is also an incumbent vice president. He studied law before entering regional politics and has been a member of the European Parliament since 1997. The Parliament also elected 5 quaestors, 2 of them from the EPP group. Jim Higgins of Ireland was a teacher before entering national politics in the 1990s, including Minister of State for the Departments of Finance and Defense. Astrid Lulling of Luxembourg is the Parliament's longest-serving MEP, having entered in 1965. Before that, she was a newspaper editor and liaison to miners and metalworkers for the European coal and steel community. Despite voting all the new leadership positions, the Parliament did have time to attack a number of top issues. Of course, high on the agenda was the financial crisis.
The Parliament approved a resolution that suggested amendments to the European Council's proposed agreement on a fiscal stability union. The agreement aims to strengthen fiscal rules within the EU. It would require balanced budgets enforced by the European Court of Justice. The UK has opted out, preventing it from being part of the Lisbon Treaty, but negotiations are underway to include all 26 other member states, and the hope is it will eventually be integrated into Lisbon. EPP group member Elmar Brok is among 4 MEPs representing Parliament in talks with the European Council and member states. The MEP's resolution calls for a treaty roadmap with a view to introducing Eurobonds in a bid to stabilise the market for public debt. The resolution also calls for an EU law for a financial transaction tax that could raise an estimated €55 billion a year. Brok emphasises that any agreement must include all 26 interested member states.
We don't consider this treaty as our first choice. It would have been better if everything were in the EU treaty from the start. Secondly, this treaty should not lead to Europe's division. It must be done so that the 26 countries that want to make it together can make it together.
The new intergovernmental treaty is to be approved by March.
How to deal with Europe's fastest-growing source of waste from electronic products is another leading issue the Parliament tackled during this session. The answer: toughen up Europe-wide regulation.
The so-called Waste Electrical and Electronic Equipment, or WEEE regulation, is aimed at encouraging recycling of the materials. But now, 9 years in force, a lot of the waste is still falling through the cracks. An estimated 65% of it is collected and less than half is processed. Much of the rest is illegally exported. The Parliament seeks amendments to the Commission's proposal to strengthen enforcement, including calling for European standards and selective treatment of nanomaterials. Another Parliament amendment requires the cost of recycling be passed on in the product's price, not covered by the taxpayer. The EPP's Karl-Heinz of Germany is the amendment's rapporteur.
In many of the founding countries, we managed to get only 3 or 4 kilos per person collected. This is pretty disastrous for our children because we are simply dumping raw materials that won't be able to be used in the future.
As electrical waste is an ever-growing headache, the legislation is seen as highly important to Europe's future.
That's all for now from the Strasbourg session. See you next week in Brussels. And find out more about the largest political force in Parliament by checking eppgroup.eu. Thanks for watching, and see you again soon.